This is the Skin in the Game VC podcast, hosted by Tom Wallace, entrepreneur turned venture capitalist and the managing partner at Florida Funders. You'll learn from the best about investing in early stage tech companies, so you too can gain the confidence and find the tools that help you succeed as an angel investor. Are you ready to get some skin in the game?
Hello, this is Tom Wallace, managing partner at Florida Funders. Welcome to another edition of Skin in the Game VC, our podcast where we talk to founders and other angel investors and try to learn from each other. PitchBook named us the most active VC in the Southeast. In case you're not familiar with Florida Funders, we are a combination of a venture capital firm and a curated group of 2,000 accredited investors that focus on finding funding and building the next generation of great technology companies here in the state of Florida and beyond. Our goal with this podcast is to create kind of a unique experience of, again, learning from founders and other angel investors. And we're really in this together just to learn. I think that's one of the great things about early stage tech investing. We're always looking to learn. Everything's always changing, and there's always new stuff going on and somebody new to learn from. I'm extremely excited about our founder, our founder that's going to be joining us, our guest today. His name is Joey Levy. You may have recently seen him. He's been all over the news with Jake Paul, who is his partner in this new and exciting company called Betr that Florida Funders has invested in, and we're extremely excited about. They recently launched Betr to a lot of fanfare. In fact, I was telling Joey right before we got started, I was watching Fox News yesterday, and him and Jake were on, which was really exciting. Full disclosure, I've always been a lifelong sports lover. I grew up playing sports, as many people did, and I've always enjoyed betting on sports. So this is Betr is near and dear to my heart. So with that, Joey, welcome.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Thanks for having me, Tom. Really good to be here.
Oh no, I'm really excited about having you on. As I mentioned, I've always enjoyed sports betting, but what Betr is about is really totally disrupting sports betting as people like me have been doing it for years. So tell our audience how the Betr is different, both because it's not just sports betting, you got a media side, but also how you guys at Betr look at sports betting and why it's so different and disruptive to what we traditionally have thought of as sports betting.
Sure. Yeah, I'd say, so as you articulated, there's two sides of this business. There's a real money gaming business, and then there's a media arm. And we almost view Betr, we're not like formally a holding company, at least not yet, but like we view ourselves a bit as like a holding company where we have a real money gaming business and a media business. On the real money gaming side, the way we really differentiate ourselves, and it's been an incredibly interesting journey to sort of get to this exact product vision, is we're launching the world's first micro betting app. And
micro betting. Yeah.
Yes.
What's micro betting?
Yeah. So micro betting, think of it as like micro timeframes with respect to the duration of the betting markets. So traditional sports betting today is predominantly like, there's three main products, which are kind of like, when you interact with these experiences, it's almost like interacting with a foreign language if you've never been on sports before. So you have like money lines, point spreads, over under. So a money line, for example, is you're taking a minus 175 money line that the Dolphins will beat the Jets in this game. So you're betting $175 to win 100. The fact that I had to explain that to you is like part of the problem, right? Like that's not an intuitive experience, but that's kind of like the core product today. And then you have like point spreads where it's like so on the point spreads, for example, plus 5.5, you're betting on like the team to win the game or to lose by 5 or less. If you look at an over under, it'll be displayed on the UI as like 54.50/U, which basically means you're betting on will there be a total of 55, or will there be 55 points or more in the game or less, right? Like those are the core experiences. But what all of those experiences have in common, whether you're betting on those markets before the game or if you're betting on those markets during the game, because in-play betting is has been around, and it's been a big thing in markets like the UK. Some operators are taking 70-80% or even more than that of their total handle and revenue in in-play betting. So
people are betting during the game.
They're betting on those markets. Correct. The game has started, and like in the second quarter, you're taking a money line of a revised money line on the Dolphins to beat the Jets, because maybe the Jets are up 14-0 at the end of the first quarter. So now instead of a minus 175 money line on the Dolphins, they're now the underdog. So it's like plus 300. So that's been around, but you still have to wait until the end of a game to understand whether or not you won or lost that bet. And like, while that may not sound like a big deal, like most professional sporting events are like 2, 3, 4 hours long, right?
Sure.
And for today's generation, and just like, and people like to say, oh, the younger generation, but really it's like, I think most consumers nowadays are exhibiting increasingly lower attention spans, and they want more instant gratification. And even within the gambling sector, historically, this has been validated. If you just look at like the data that's come out of Vegas over the last several decades, like what gambling experience consistently generates the lion's share of revenue? It's slot machines, right? And most people are surprised to hear that, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not even close.
I thought you were going to say blackjack.
Oh, it's not even close. It's slots. And like, and people are surprised, and you're probably surprised, because it's like slots are kind of a shitty product, right? Like,
yeah.
you're like sitting.
My mother loved slot machines. I thought old ladies played most.
Totally. That's why I say, like, people say the younger generation or Gen Z or whatever. It's like, no, like if anything, it's the older generation that has low attention spans, because like the primary value prop from a slot machine, because you're just sitting there pushing a button, right? But when you push that button, you place a bet, and within a few seconds, you know whether or not you won or lost that bet. That is the value. It's that tight feedback loop. So
that's what you're bringing to the sports world.
Correct.
With micro betting, right?
Right. So, and like I've been, grateful and fortunate enough to see the kind of the evolution of U.S. sports gaming as a kid to now, and before, I could get into more of the founding story, but like I started a company called DraftPot about 8 years ago, where it was one of the early daily fantasy sports sites, and I remember when daily fantasy sports introduced instant gratification to season-long fantasy sports, and that category really took off because of the layer of instant gratification that DFS introduced to season-long fantasy. But with traditional sports betting,
how old were you when you started DraftPot?
I was like 18, 19 as an undergrad at college. But anyways, I bring that up just to bring up the point that like there's been these like inflection points in U.S. sports gaming where the level of instant gratification is like increasing by orders of magnitude over time, and micro betting is sort of that last level of instant gratification. The way we describe it is like it's the TikTokification of sports betting, if you will.
TikTokification. I like that. So I'm watching a baseball game. Pete Alonso's son is up. Pete Alonso plays for the Mets. His father's an investor of ours and a good friend and great guy. And I'm going to bet on, is he going to strike out, hit a home run, single, double, triple, right there. I don't have to be at the game. I could be at home watching it on TV, right?
Totally. I mean, that's going to be like the core experience. You're sitting on your couch and you're watching it at home. And the other
thing,
it
could be Tom Brady leading our Tampa Bay Bucks on a drive. This drive's going to end in a touchdown, an interception, a first down, and I can place a bet right there then and figure out if I want to loss, then place my next bet.
Yeah,
right?
and correct. And the amazing thing about the technology is as Tom Brady is driving down the field, the odds will change with every play, right? Like the odds of the Bucks scoring a touchdown on a 1st and 10 on the opposing team's 20-yard line are a lot different than on their own 15, 3rd and 15, right? But then let's say they convert that 3rd and 15. Let's say it's 3rd and 15 on their own 15, and you bet touchdown. You're going to get really good. You're going to get a really good payout multiple on that. And let's say he passes it for 20 yards and converts. You're in the money already. You know what I mean? Like you've created value for yourself, and they're going to continue driving down the field, or they're not going to convert. Like you could hedge your bets in real time. Like
the technology around immediately updating the odds based on that play, that pitch. There's a lot. I mean, I don't know if our audience really appreciates how difficult that is to do. That's where the core technology. So you've been working on this technology for years, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the origin story at a super high level is essentially I co-founded SimpleBet 4 years ago to do what we're doing with Betr now. So the idea was to like be a direct-to-consumer company that simplified the sports betting user experience. So like that -175 plus 5.5 point spread, 54.50/U. Like I remember when I first looked at a sports betting app coming from daily fantasy sports. And so I was like, I'm not super sophisticated as a user, but like I was informed, like I started a daily fantasy sports company and I saw these experiences and I had no idea how to use the product. And that just seemed problematic. Like you have dozens of multi-billion-dollar organizations spending billions of dollars on marketing and trying to acquire customers, but their products are not interpretable to normal people who've never bet on sports before. Like that seemed super problematic. So we started SimpleBet to simplify the existing sports betting user experience. What ended up happening was 6 weeks
And the
after,
companies you were referring to are like FanDuel, DraftKings, companies like that.
even before then, because the federal ban on sports betting wasn't repealed yet. So even before then,
That's right. This was all illegal before that, right? Everything was offshore. When did the Supreme Court allow for
So we started SimpleBet formally in April of 2018. I've been working on this as a project for about a year and a half before that, actually in Eastern Europe, because it wasn't legal in the US yet. But I felt like just there would be a large market globally for people who wanted to bet on sports but didn't understand things like how odds worked, and the user experiences were all cluttered and kind of felt like interacting with a spreadsheet or like a transactional UI layer.
I assume in Eastern Europe it was soccer.
Yeah, it predominantly focused on soccer. We always, or I say we, I mean, I've always felt like, with the proliferation of like cannabis legalization in the US, like sports betting would ultimately become legal in the US at some point, right? And like, towards 2017, 2018, there were a lot of, discussions around the Supreme Court very possibly repealing the federal ban. So moved back to the US in early 2018, officially formed SimpleBet in April of 2018. And then the Supreme Court repealed the federal ban on sports betting in a 7-2 decision in May of 2018. So
timing's everything.
Yeah, it's better to be lucky than smart in most cases. And so we were incredibly lucky with that. So when that happened, what we decided to do was to create these simple experiences around just US sports, like being exclusively focused on developing product for US sports, because that's presumably where the opportunity would be. Like everybody's building product for a global audience, but nobody's really focused on US. So we started building these simple experiences for US sports, and some of the initial
and predominantly baseball,
baseball, MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, like that's what we were looking at. And some of the initial ideas we had for those sports were like, well, it would be cool if people could bet on pitches and at bats of baseball games, or plays and drives of football games, or like, will LeBron's next made basket be a 2-pointer, 3-pointer, or 2-pointer, 3-pointer free throw? Like that would be a cool thing for people to do, right? Like that's kind of like how it started, right? So we started designing these simple UIs, which you could see today on simplebet.io. Like most of those mock-ups were designed about 4 years ago. And we went to the B2B technology companies like Sportradar, BetGenius, Stats, and Perform, who were two separate companies at the time. And we went to them just trying to get an API feed that would enable us to offer these simple user experiences around pitches and at bats, plays and drives. And that's when we discovered that none of them had built the requisite technical infrastructure to enable micro betting on US sports, which, kind of seemed insane, because it was like, how does this not exist? But then if you think about it, it actually makes sense why it didn't exist, because the global regulated market, as you already alluded to, was, previously driven by soccer. And so all of product technology and operations in the global sports betting industry was all geared towards building product around soccer.
And soccer really doesn't lend itself to micro betting,
exactly,
right?
Correct. So like if you think of the cadence of a soccer match, it's like it's a very fluid game. There aren't really any moments to bet on. There's not a lot of scoring. Like it's just this nonstop sort of back and forth, and few goals determine the outcome, and it's built for match outcome based betting. You're betting on will Arsenal beat Man U, like that's the experience.
Yeah.
But when you think of the composition of US sports, it's like the opposite. Like US sports are stop and start cadence, moment to moment, driven by a lot of scoring and speculation over superstar players and what they'll do next. So that's when we realized like micro betting, understandably was ignored as a category, but the repeal of the federal ban on sports betting made it such that micro betting, it justified the investment and the focus in building the technical infrastructure to enable micro betting. And when you think of the cadence of US sports combined with how this introduces like a new level of instant gratification in the sports betting user experience, we started forming a thesis that like micro betting may actually be the predominant way people bet on sports in this country, but you need to get the technology right. And there's nuances to the user experience that weren't like previously considered for match outcome based betting, right? Like so to like give you an example, like you mentioned Pete Alonso at home plate, like you're betting on will it be a single, double, triple, home run, strikeout, walk, other. So you're betting on that, let's say while he's on deck. And then let's say he goes to the plate and ball 1, ball 2, ball 3, it's a 3-0 count. The odds are different, right? Like the likelihood of a strikeout is a lot lower, right? Like the likelihood of a walk is a lot higher.
Yeah, that's that instant part that I think has got to be really challenging.
So like it's a totally different technology challenge to enable people to live. You're not just betting on at bats, but you're live betting the at bat with the odds changing with every pitch. And like that's where like I remember when the market first opened up, and Kambi, who's previously the sportsbook platform provider for DraftKings has since shifted to SB Tech, which they acquired as part of their going public, de-SPACing process. But like, I remember Kambi in like, I think it was like early 2019, they announced that they launched some micro markets with DraftKings, and and then people were like, what do you need Simple Bet for? Like Kambi is like a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company that's powering DraftKings and everybody. But if you looked at the experience, like, and again, this is like a Swedish-based company that a lot of these like operators, like they've done an incredible job, but they're not run by people who like intuitively understand US sports. Like enabling somebody to bet on the first batter of an inning, of a half inning. Will they make base or not? Yes or no. And then that's it. That's all you could bet on. Like that is not a great user experience, but like being able to slice up the market selections where you can do single, double, triple, home run, strikeout, walk, other requires a machine learning approach, because you need to take a probability based approach to the market making if you're going to have like, because like even at scale.
So it sounds like at the core from the very beginning, the user experience was always something that you were very focused on, and making betting simple, making it accessible to people who historically wouldn't bet because it was too complicated and too difficult to do. And so it's kind of like but
there's like a back end, sorry to cut you off, but there's like a back end user experience problem that is really broken down into the two pieces, right? The machine learning probability based approach to the market making, but then the automation of the market mechanics so that you could live bet and at bat. Like that, my point was like the industry experts were like, you don't need to do machine learning and automation and all that. You're just like burning investor money. Like a lot of people said that. And I'm like, you don't get the difference between live betting and at bat in real time and only being able to bet on will a batter reach base, yes or no, for only the first batter of the half of the inning. Like that doesn't sound like a big deal, but that means everything to the user experience.
Sure.
So it's like, so you have to solve the back end user experience problem. And that's what SimpleBet has built. SimpleBet has built the really difficult bespoke machine learning and automation infrastructure to enable micro betting to exist on the back end. But then 4 years later, like the front end UI, like it still feels like interacting with a spreadsheet. You still have money lines, point spreads, over unders, which just somebody who's never been on sports before, which is most of the public, is like interacting with a foreign language. Like the front end user experience has not been solved. So that's why we started Betr. And there's all,
it's going to be better,
reasons, obviously, but
betting with Betr.
It's going to be better. So
Jobs talked a lot about that, where he was a fanatic about simplifying the user experience. He was a fanatic about the user experience with all his products, with all the Apple products. But he always talked about how simple is harder. Making it simple, making that user experience so intuitive, so people don't need to read a manual, don't get frustrated, is really, really difficult and takes a lot of work. And it sounds like that's what you're focused on here. That's exciting. Let me change directions here a little bit. So your partner at Betr is Jake Paul, who, full disclosure, I didn't know who that was till about a year and a half ago when Saxon at Florida Funders educated me on Jake Paul. And for those of you who don't know who Jake Paul is, he's a sports media star. He's a boxer. He's a YouTuber. He's got 70 million followers on social media, something like that. Yep. And he's your partner at Betr. How did you meet Jake? Got to hear that story. And how did this all come about?
Yeah. So, we were actually talking about it a couple of nights ago, because it's cool how everything's come full circle here. But I think it's like a year and a half, 2 years ago, there was like a dinner in Miami that I was invited to, and by just one of my friends, and sort of like just startups and tech or whatever. And I actually like wasn't feeling well that night, and it was kind of still during COVID situation. So like, I like wasn't going to go, and he's bothering me like, no, you got to come. There's some cool people here I want to introduce you to. So I show up like an hour and a half late, barely made it. And I end up sitting next to this guy, Jeff Wu, who recently started a venture fund called Anti-Fund, with Jake Paul. And his whole thesis was, we live in a world where capital is increasingly becoming a commodity, and venture investors need to really add like a material amount of value if they're going to get allocation into the best venture deals. And from his perspective, like, and Jeff's like a seasoned Silicon Valley entrepreneur and investor, so like knows the ins and outs of that world. And he paired himself up with Jake Paul, who is arguably the most famous Gen Z internet personality in the world. And as a result of that, if you're a consumer company particularly, but even if you're a B2B company, like, you want somebody like people like that on your cap table. So you'll always carve out room for allocation of their deals. So that was their whole thesis. And I just like mentioned what I was working on, and and Jeff said something like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I was just talking to Jake about like, maybe we should do more venture building type initiatives. But we don't want to do like, we don't want to be like the like one of 100 celebrities who are like launching a tequila brand, right? Like, because that's kind of like what all of them are doing, like we want to do something. Yeah, we want to do something leveraging software that's more scalable. And this is also around the time where like Barstool and Dave Portnoy and that combination with Penn Gaming like was really taking off and headlining the markets. And so I think they came to the conclusion that they want to do something in sports betting. Now, it was right in the midst of me trying to figure out how can we solve the user experience problem, the front end user experience problem at SimpleBet, now that we had solved the back end user experience problem. So I was thinking through like, for a while at SimpleBet, I wanted to take SimpleBet direct to consumer, and there wasn't a lot of internal support for that, because the moment you do that, your customers like DraftKings and FanDuel,
you're competing with them.
You're competing with them, so there's a high likelihood they'll tell you to fuck off, right? So we ultimately decided that building, like spinning out a new entity where SimpleBet would be like a minority shareholder would be like the best way to do it, right? Where SimpleBet still gets upside, but like it's very clear to the market that SimpleBet is not going direct to consumer, and this new direct to consumer company would be using SimpleBet technology because SimpleBet is the one offering micro betting technology. So I was like in the midst of figuring out how to do that. So the timing was just super fortuitous, and And then we just had a few conversations about what we're working on. And
so Jeff then invited you to meet Jake, I take it?
yeah, so we had like a few. So he shared the Simple Bet information with Jake, and Jake immediately like was following up with me. Hey, we got to get on a call. We got to discuss this. I think we could do something cool together. I wasn't ready yet to spin out direct to consumer from Simple Bet. Like there were still some things we needed to take care of on the Simple Bet front before, I could go out and like dedicate all of my time and take that thing to market. But just spent a lot of time with Jake and ultimately decided that, we wanted to do this thing together, because the more time I spent with Jake and hearing about like his thesis around sports media, which I'm not a media guy. Like I've been down the daily fantasy sports betting, micro betting rabbit hole now for pretty much my entire adult life. And, I'm not a media guy, but just after, watching more of his videos and spending more time with him, and then seeing the state of sports media today, where it's basically like super loud, deliberately provocative talking heads like Stephen A. Smith just saying a bunch of, whatever on ESPN, just in the most loud, provocative manner. And they play the same shit over and over and over. And it's like sports media kind of sucks in this country. I find it extremely boring.
I can't do it.
I mean,
they overanalyze everything, every play, give me a break.
Yeah. And like, who cares?
Before the game, like, after the game.
Who cares? You know what I mean? I mean, some people care.
Some people have too much time on their hands is what I've come to the conclusion, but.
Totally. But it just, so then I'm like, okay, what, like, so like, and then I remember thinking through like, spinning out direct to consumer and all the industry experts, some of whom even working at Simple Bet were, saying things like you can't start a direct to consumer startup in the space. It's way too expensive. Customer acquisition is, FanDuel, you could go out and raise $50 million, but FanDuel is going to spend $50 million week one of NFL. They're going to crush you. And I'm like, okay, but how are they spending that $50 million? They're buying a bunch of, generic, poorly produced commercial ads on ESPN. Like, who's watching the commercials anymore? Like, who's going to see that and be like, oh, I'm going to download FanDuel now? Like, that's not how you you'll get brand awareness, right? People will know about FanDuel and they have a lot of awareness. FanDuel and DraftKings are now synonymous with sports betting, but are they going to get brand affinity? Like, are you going to see people walking down the street wearing a FanDuel hoodie? No, it's like they're just shoving ads down your throat and engaging in a race to the bottom on who.
By the way, I want a better hoodie. Just
I got you. I got you. We'll be on the way to you.
That's
right
cool.
After this.
No, I'll wear that down the street. That's cool.
Yeah. So like, so it's like they're playing. Excuse me. They're playing a different game, right? Their game is, we're gonna spend a shit ton of money on, blunt force customer acquisition, buy up all the ads, advertise like car insurance companies. And we're also going to give users the most amount of free money to use our app. And we're just going to be number one that way. And we're not going to win that game, but I think that's the wrong game to play. Like, I don't think that's a sustainable game. Like, you're not building value. You're like shoving things down people's throats. And it's like, Barstool is probably the best one to date. That's like, and the reason why they were the best is because they started as a media company and they built a real brand with affinity, and like, people fuck with Barstool. Like, they like it. They like Dave Portnoy. Like, he's super authentic, and there's a deliberate separation between the media company and the gaming business. Because and as a result of that, they're able to maintain a level of autonomy with respect to building like an organic, authentic brand voice. So then I started, thinking to myself with Jake, it's like, what if we built like a better version of Barstool, like, and use that as a way to like get brand affinity? We're going to get brand awareness because you have 70 million social media followers, and we could bring in other talent that wants to work with us that also has a lot of social media followers. But what if we built just a cool brand, a media company, build, and we don't have to spend money on marketing. So I think, which is a great way to build a company. I mean, if you think about Google, if you think about
most of the social platforms, whether it be Facebook, Instagram. I mean, they had billions of users and spent no money on marketing. It was all viral. Their customer acquisition costs in the early days were zero. And
yeah, and it all starts with product, by the way. So like, just to close the loop on that, it's like the way we're going to be successful is not because of the media company. We're going to be successful because we're building a user experience, both between the simple intuitive UI layer that like makes sports betting something that somebody who's never done it before can just pick up and intuitively interact with. And then the unbundling of micro betting, the focus on instant gratification. Mm-hmm. We're going to win because, and we're not offering things like free bets, or we're not going to compete with FanDuel and DraftKings like, I don't want people to use Betr because of free bets. I want them to use Betr because they want to use Betr. Right. So we're going to win because we have a better product experience. But the media company is just like I view it as like a hack for distribution. But independently, because we're deliberately sort of separating it, I think it'll generate incremental enterprise value just through the audience we're developing. Jake's launching a sports show this week called BS with Jake Paul, which we think could be the #1 sports show in the world in pretty short order. Like, we may sell sponsorships around that and generate revenue that way, right? So, but it'll all come back to the product experience. But this is sort of our hack to customer acquisition, and why I think
cool. I love it. Love this strategy. Now, on going back to the micro betting and the whole Supreme Court ruling, I live in Florida. You live in Florida. You're in Miami. I'm in Tampa. I know Florida, I can't sports bet legally here. What are there, 17 states? How does that affect Betr? And as you roll out, and how quickly do you see? It's ridiculous that I can't bet in sports bet in Florida, but I go to Pennsylvania or wherever and I can do it. So how does that affect you, and how quickly do you see that changing?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say the reason why it's like that is the Supreme Court made it clear this is a state's rights issues, right? So you're dealing with like state politics on, it's almost like we have to launch this business in 50 different countries. Like that's how we treat it. So, ultimately, I think legal sports betting will be ubiquitous everywhere, and it's legal in over 30 states already.
Oh, 30.
It's legal in over 30. Mobile betting is perhaps only legal in about 17 to 20, but even that is, and basically what that means is like, in New York, for example, when they first legalized sports betting, you had to go to a land-based casino in upstate New York. You couldn't use a mobile app. For 2 years, it was like that. And they were doing about $50 million in bets a month. And then, Cuomo's governor, and they're burning a lot of money during COVID, and tax revenues are down, and they need in. And so they decided to shift to mobile, and now they're doing over $1 billion a month. So
a month.
Yeah. So it's all shifting to mobile betting. I think it's all going to be ubiquitous ultimately, but it's like states politics. Like in Florida, for instance, it's a battle between, does the Seminole tribe of Florida, who's generating an incredible amount of tax revenue, for the state, are they the ones that control sports betting by paying multi-billion-dollar minimum guarantees to the state on an annual basis? Or should it be more of an open market where like individual operators like FanDuel, DraftKings, or Betr can go to the state and pay a license fee and a tax? Or is it a hybrid approach where the Seminole tribe of Florida like controls sports betting and then could sub-license market access to these other operators? Like, these are and as you can imagine, like very high stakes, like decisions and politics involved with that. So it takes time to resolve itself.
Politics involved. We did have mobile sports betting for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, and then
from the Seminole tribe, and then it got shut down.
Yeah, because a judge said that the way they went about sort of legalizing it was unconstitutional, because gambling is sort of it was something like that. Like so that's kind of why it is what it is. But from my standpoint, I think it's great that it's not legal everywhere yet, because it gives us time to, like we did this week, launch our company, launch our brand, launch our media company, build an audience. We're going live in Indiana later this year. We're going to go live in Ohio day one, which is January 1st, 2023. We have a couple of other states where we're finalizing market access deals, and we're going to go live in, half one of 2023. So it gives us time to, launch state by state, really prove out what we're doing, right? Like there's a lot of like we have a lot of vision with respect to what we think the user experience should look and feel like, but like we got to launch and learn and iterate and like
sure.
so it gives us time to like launch and get our shit together. And then once we prove our model, we could go out and, you know, knock on wood, we'll raise a couple $100 million in a Series B and be more competitive in these new states. But I think it's a blessing that three of the four biggest states in the union, California, Texas, and Florida, are not live with mobile sports betting yet. So when they will go live, we'll be there day one.
You'll be
or at
ready.
least we hope to. At least we hope to be. California's, you know, probably going to ask for $100 million license fee. So hopefully, you know, by the time we would have to pay that, we'll be, you know, well positioned.
You've done your Series B, and you'll have the 100 million, and you'll be able to do it. So you're, you know, arguably, I mean, first of all, I think what you're doing is awesome, and it's super exciting. And obviously, we at Florida Funders are big fans and investors, and maybe we'll get a chance to talk about that later. But what I was, you know, you're the first mover in this space, right? You know, you guys are really first movers, and you know, with first movers, there's a lot of challenges, risk, a lot to learn, as you said. So, a lot of execution risk, as we say in the investment world. What do you think are your biggest challenges? And when you look out over the coming years and building this, really, you're building almost again, you're a first mover. You're building a new space, which is obviously building companies, as we all know, is really challenging, really difficult in and of itself, let alone building a whole new space. And so what are the big challenges? What goes wrong here?
I mean, a lot of challenges, and there's a lot that could go wrong. I mean, for me, the biggest thing when starting this business, like I kind of alluded to this already, they're launching a direct. I can't tell you how many times I literally heard it in my sleep. You're going to fail launching a direct-to-consumer gambling business because of how expensive it is. How in the world are you going to compete with FanDuel and DraftKings on customer acquisition? Like, you know, even product and technology is expensive. Like market access and licensing was another one. Like, you're not going to be able to get market access against these guys, like 20-year-old kids, whatever. Like, how are you going to pay the $30 million market access fee in this random state? Like, so for me, the biggest thing was identifying what are the most expensive things that are associated with launching a regulated, licensed gambling business in America. One is product and technology, which was baked into the deal through the Simple Bet deal that we did. So we had that going for us. The second thing was, you know, customer acquisition, marketing, distribution, which, you know, we made the decision that we were going to invest a little bit into, you know, hiring a team to build a next generation sports media company around Jake Paul and, you know, diversifying beyond Jake and bringing, you know, other talent and incubating other talent. And, you know, we think the next Jake Paul could come out of our media company. But then the third thing with market access and distribution, you know, what, like you don't hear about this in any of the press that's come out, but it's perhaps like the most important thing from a business standpoint. Like, we've made several market access deals with license holders in the US for predominantly equity-based arrangements, which have quite literally saved the business tens of millions of dollars already. So we're going into this thing with a $50 million war chest, having barely spent any money to date, and de-risking all of those three things that, you know, all the experts said would cost tens to hundreds of millions of dollars out of the gate. So that was the first thing. And then to have a 50 million war chest on top of that is nice. So then you think about, okay, like going across each of those three things, like how do you de-risk the execution against that? Like the product and technology, like sure, we're getting it from SimpleBet, like, but is the user, like, are we developing the right user experience? Like, should we like hold back the release longer to perfect it, or should we just get it out there and like learn from user feedback? Like, these are things that we think about all the time. Media distribution, like we're building this amazing, hopefully amazing distinct media business under the Betr umbrella. And we've already proven that we're building an audience, we're capable of building an audience and engaging that audience. Like right now, and I'm sure the numbers have even changed over the course of this interview, like our Instagram account has almost 100,000 followers, which is 30,000 more than DraftKings Sportsbook. Like, that's crazy.
And
like,
when did you launch it?
48 hours ago.
That's fantastic.
Like, that's crazy, right? Like, they've spent billions of dollars on marketing, and we are 30% more than them on Instagram. Like on the sportsbook side, they have their main account, which I think we're probably on track to pass this week. So like, but then within the media company, it's like, okay, so, initial thesis is proven to be correct and, even exceeding our own high expectations. So that's good. But are we going to convert that audience to product now? Like, that's a big question. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
So the way we de-risk against that is, of the 50 million, I would say 5 to 10% of that we're putting into a performance marketing budget where we will spend some money on marketing. Like, there's proven ways, like there's a science to this, right? Like, you hire a head of growth who's like, done this playbook or has ideas around a revised playbook for going to, affiliate marketers like Roto Grinders or Vegas Insider and giving them a promo code and paying them a CPA that gets triggered every time somebody deposits in their Betr account. Like, you could control CAC that way, and you could prove out a unit economics model that features a really tight payback period. Like, you could do that, and we're going to do that, right? Because one of the things that keeps me up at night is like, we're going to build this great media company, incremental enterprise value, brand awareness, brand affinity, but is it going to convert to real money gambling customers? I don't know. I hope so.
Speaking of the talent you brought in, I saw where, I'm looking at my notes here, I saw where you brought in some people from FanDuel and Barstool. And so you're putting together a great team, obviously, to execute on this, right?
Totally. I mean, I've been blessed to be able to be sort of a founder, CEO, entrepreneur for a while now, despite being a young person. And I've hired a lot of people. So I've had, when I met Alex from FanDuel, Alex Ursa, Mike Denevi from Bleacher, I knew these guys were studs. Like, we like that. That's the thing I'm perhaps most proud of so far. It's not the money we've raised. It's not the Instagram followers. It's the team we've assembled. This is a really special team. I mean, you literally have people.
Best team wins. Just like sports.
And like, I promise we're not starting a cult, but we have people on the team like getting, like, I have the logo tattooed and
I saw where Jake Paul did that.
No, some of the executives, I mean, Mike Denevi, who runs our media company, got the logo tattooed on it. I mean, some of the talent's getting tattooed. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, people are committed, they're excited, and they're good people. They're good people who are young, up and coming leaders with infinite upside.
It's awesome what you guys are doing, and I think you're doing it at your age is fantastic. Hey, we're running out of time. I like to do this thing. We like to do this thing called lightning round, where I just ask you some quick questions. Brief answers, 1-2 words is fine, or and so we'll go through this pretty quickly. So I'll get you ready.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Who's your most admired entrepreneur?
That's hard. There's so many good ones.
Besides me.
I mean, look, like the obvious ones that you learn from, like Musk and his ambition, Bezos and some of his operating principles. Like, he's really big on like stubborn on the vision, flexible on the details. Like, that's something that I think about all the time and how it informs my approach. Jobs with respect to his product focus and that's something I learned from. But then also like my co-founder at Simplebet, Chris Bevilacqua, like he, like one of the hardest working people who just failure is not an option type mentality, like being able to learn from somebody like that in real time, like was amazing. Like no chance I am where I am today without people like that. So
cool. That's great. Yeah. I love the failure's not an option from entrepreneurs. Always love people that are wired that way. Favorite sport?
Soon to be baseball. Now that micro betting is coming to market.
Favorite sports celebrity, not Jake.
I love Dwayne Wade, man. I grew up in South Florida, and I was 8 years old in 2003 when he was drafted, and that guy was just built different. I was a huge admirer of Dwayne Wade.
Cool. We're both in Florida. We didn't really get a chance to get in the whole Florida thing, but favorite restaurant, Miami. I love going to Miami, and I love the restaurants. I'm always looking for the next place I got to check out when I'm over there.
Yeah, I mean, anything Dave Grutman does is great. Coat in Design District, the Korean barbecue, that place is awesome.
Coat, and then I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
If you had to describe Jake Paul in one word, what would it be?
Fearless, ambitious, the 2 words, but those are the 2 that come to mind.
And if you had to describe Joey Levy in one word, what would it be?
I'll use 2 words: ambitious and persistent. Like, the one thing about me is I will never give up. I mean, this company is the culmination of a decade's worth of work I've kind of been trying to solve, like the same exact problem for like 10 years. And I'm never going to quit until we not only solve it, but it becomes the category defining company in the space that generates tens of billions of dollars for shareholders.
I love it. Joey, this has been great. Thank you so much for being on Skin in the Game VC with myself. Really appreciate it. And we could go on for another hour or 2.
Yeah, no, this was fun, man. Appreciate you. Thanks.
Okay. Again, thanks. And I and our audience are so going to enjoy so much watching you build Betr with Jake, and we're big fans, and it'll be exciting, and can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, no, and super grateful to you guys and your support, by the way. I mean, you and Saxon and the team at Florida Funders were really the first ones to step up, and we're like, yeah, like, I know it's a pre-launch company and the valuation's a little bit high, but we think this is a big opportunity and we're going to get behind it. Like, that's something that I'm never going to forget. And we're not where we are today without you guys. So super grateful to you guys.
Well, thank you. And we're excited to be partners with you and for the future.
All right.
Thanks to our audience. Thanks for spending your time with Skin in the Game today. If you want to learn more about Florida Funders, just go out to floridafunders.com. If you're an investor, we have opportunities like Betr out there you can invest in, although Betr is not live right now. We're always looking and putting up new companies that we've vetted and found that are exciting, like Betr. And if you're a founder and you're looking for funding, go out to floridafunders.com. You can go through our process in about 5 minutes and apply for funding and get in our queue in our process. And you never know. So thank you, and thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for spending your time with Skin in the Game VC today. If you want to learn more about investing in early stage tech like a venture capitalist, be sure to visit the Florida Funders website at floridafunders.com. Join our angel network at no cost and get access to Florida Funders VC vetted investment opportunities in the next great breakout tech companies.